Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sloppy Lab. This is Bottom of the Beaker, the weekly show about the design, ducks, and strategy of Keyforge, everyone, and I mean everyone's favorite unique deck game. I am the anecdotally gluey JT Russell, and with me tonight is a man who is taking a break from his day job doing fast caricatures for Dust Pixies. I am, of course, talking about uh, Mr. Quick Draw 3457. How are we doing this evening, Quick Draw?
I'm good. It's nice to be here for episode 2 of season 3, 92 overall.
Mm-hmm.
And we're entering the fall season now, which is my favorite.
I do enjoy the fall scene as well. Would you say it's your favorite? I was having actually
Absolutely.
this discussion
No
with not tonight
question.
before. Yeah, so you like fall. I like fall, spring, both good, but I think fall tops it for me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, especially
I
living in a
bet you,
state where there's like very, very inconsistent AC.
yeah, well, you live in a state where you got some great leaf peeping in the fall season,
Mm-hmm.
and your springs are probably better than my springs. Springs in Pittsburgh don't really exist anymore. We generally have like a fake summer in like early March when it gets 80 degrees. And then we have second winter that starts after that and it lasts until about early April. And then you have like 2 weeks of spring. And then at some point, like in April, it snows again just to mess with you.
Nice.
And then it goes straight into summer. And that's pretty much spring anymore. So I'm over that.
Yeah, the joke when I was in school, which was also in Maine, was that spring was the dirty snow season. Everything's just kind of
Yeah,
slushy and
it's
dirty.
it's
And
very true.
yeah,
Still like that here. But we're in the fall. We can enjoy the fall for a bit and talk about some Keyforge leading up to KFC.
leading up to KFC, indeed, getting very excited. But yeah, this evening, well, not quite in KFC topics quite yet, though. The hype is building. Internal hype is building for sure. Looking forward to it indeed. But we have a fun episode in store for everybody this evening, or morning, or afternoon, or midday. If you're chowing down some lunch, listening to the old bottom of the beaker, good for you. We have an evolution of our double-sided artifacts series. Quick Draw and I, we were sitting in the lab the other day, and we kind of looked at each other in the eye and looked down at the list of double-sided artifacts, and it was like Killigog's Trench staring us up in the face, and we were like, "Not yet. It's not time.
Not time for the
it's not,
trench.
it's not time yet." So we're expanding the double-sided artifact series into a larger series that we're calling single card strategies. That's kind of the name for the overarching arc. So these are going to be cards that, yeah, carry a lot of weight in your deck list. There are ones that you might, craft a game plan around. Generally have high impact, but that's kind of how I think about it. Does that kind of make sense? Sound like what you're thinking?
Yeah, and I think naturally they're going to be artifacts still. They may not be the double-sided form that we've grown to love, but
Mm-hmm.
they're generally going to be artifacts because the artifacts are the ones that stick around the most, and they're the ones that you can kind of plan your deck around. Creatures obviously very fragile, no matter how big they are, and so we don't really. I don't think we'll focus on too many creatures. There might be some that pop in. Never know, but I think we'll still be focused on the artifacts here heavily. And once the new sets come out, there will certainly be some double-sided artifact discussion as part of this too.
Totally. So these are going to be cards exactly that are going to warp play around them. Maybe the leaders, a Val or something, or a Lord Invidious could fall in that camp, but we'll see what we get to. But yeah, maybe Ember Skies will make us flush once more with double-sided artifacts that are juicy to talk through, and we'll hop right back to those. Um, but for this first foray into single card strategies, we do indeed have more artifacts to share with y'all, hash over with y'all, though, as you mentioned, Quick Draw, not double sided. Very much so. Though they have kind of a theme of their own. So, yeah, what are we talking about this evening in terms of artifacts here?
Yeah, so we decided to put these two together as they do have a not similar effects, but kind of like a weird connection with each other. We're going to be talking about two of my favorite artifacts, the Sting and Ceaseforge, both together. These two, obviously, both being things that affect your Forge a Key step. And well, both players forge a key step in some cases, but starting with Ceaseforge, it is a artifact from Star Alliance. Comes with an amber pip on it. It's a law, and it says players cannot forge keys. At the start of your turn, remove a time counter from Ceaseforge, then destroy it if there are no time counters on it. Put two time counters on Ceaseforge. So it prevents both players from forging keys, period, and it does it for two straight turns. So it affects the forge a key step on both sides. And then the other one we're looking at here is the Sting, which is a Shadows artifact. It comes with an Amber Pip. It's a vehicle, and it says skip your forge a key step. You get all amber spent by your opponent when forging keys. Action, destroy the Sting. So this one just skips your own forge a key step, but gives you amber from your opponent whenever they forge at any time. So both kind of affecting the forge a key step. We thought let's put them together and talk about them in one episode.
Although to be pedantic, right? The Sting affects your forge a key step. The Ceaseforge just prevents you from forging keys, though I guess you would technically still have that step. And we had a little bit of a conversation around this in our discussion after the game, after in our game after the discussion last time, I think, about how the timing used to play out differently with skip a forge a key step cards. And I looked it up. So I think the big one was Director of ZYX Director, which archives a card off the top of your deck at the start of your turn, right? So once upon a time, you could use Miasma to cause somebody to skip that archive, and you'd Miasma them. They wouldn't get to Forge, but they'd also
Mm.
not get that archive. And I think with the Sting in play, your own Director would get nerfed too. No longer. But this was kind of the big thing that it was at the time. The gotcha,
Yeah.
the gotcha.
Glad we don't have that gotcha anymore. It doesn't make any sense,
Mm-hmm.
and the game is better for it now. So
Totally, totally. So yeah, these two, the Sting and Ceaseforge, two that I like. I've sought out a couple Sting decks on the secondary market. I haven't picked up any Ceaseforge decks though. Though I know you're pretty hot on it, so maybe I'll change my mind.
that's my goal. My goal tonight is to change your mind about Ceaseforge.
All right, all right, cool. Well, we can maybe stick to kind of similar kind of analysis as we were using for the double side artifacts. Maybe let's talk about what makes a Sting deck versus a deck with the Sting, or a Ceaseforge deck versus a deck with Ceaseforge. Yeah.
Sure. So let's start with the Sting. So the Sting is one that I think you can certainly have decks with the Sting in a bad way, sort of, where the Sting is a card that it's like, yeah, that happens to be in my deck. I probably don't really want it all the time, but maybe sometimes it's good. Whereas you can also like build decks around it. I have a few of my favorites that are kind of built around the Sting. Um, so I think what I first look for when I open a Sting deck, if I want to see if I'm building a deck around the Sting, key cheats is the first and foremost thing. I want some key cheats to be able to still forge keys with all that amber that I gain from my opponent, while not having to rely on my forge a key step. And I think the second thing I'd be looking for is some kind of self artifact control. So
Mm-hmm.
a grasping vines is great for it, or even like some way to just destroy an artifact. You may not always want to use your precious hard artifact control on your own, but with something like the Sting, it makes it a bit more palatable. And so I'd be okay doing that. It's one that you kind of want to destroy at the right time. And a reason why you might have a deck that is just a deck with the Sting is because if you're not really suited to take advantage of that six amber gain or more right away, then you have to take an entire turn to go back to Shadows just to get rid of it before you get any value from it. And sometimes that tempo and like losing that pacing is just too far, too much for you to catch up from, especially against the rush deck, where
Mm-hmm.
giving him an extra turn might kind of be the deciding factor. So, um, outside of key cheats, I think that was the one that you would wanted to highlight too. Is there anything else that you look for as like something that'll complement the Sting pretty well?
Keycheat and R to hit your own Sting are really the ones that I had in mind as well. I like to see a Gorm Vorm. Yeah, maybe you aren't over the moon to use it on your own, but having ways to get out from under your own Sting are great,
Hmm.
so that you aren't forced back into that house. If you don't want to call it into shadows, if you don't want to call it, I guess in a lot of ways you could think about a fair Sting, like a Sting played fairly, no key cheats, no kind of ways to abuse it, as
Hmm.
being very close in spirit to a Swindle, right? So it's a six amber swing, where a Swindle effectively or does take up your whole turn, right, with Alpha and Omega, whereas the Sting may force you back into a turn that you don't want to take. So not quite a full time walk in the same way that Swindle is,
Hmm.
but a 6 amber swing, maybe 7 if you count the pip, but for the cost of a house choice, effectively, which is
Yeah,
kind of interesting. I hadn't thought about quite in that way, but it hit me as you were talking through it there. Yeah.
yeah. How about taxing? Taxing is good with it as well. If you can tax your opponent through like a Lash of Broken Dreams or even just a Murmuk by itself, um, then that gets you a little extra value from it too. So taxing is another thing that can be quite good with it. Um, and yeah, so you mentioned like the tempo loss of like having to change houses and go back to shadows. It actually might induce me into playing some shadows cards that I wouldn't have thought to play normally, like a bad penny, for example.
Mm.
Um, if you know you're going back into shadows, then you're going to want to you might think like, oh, I can play that bad penny, and if she sticks around, I get the reap out of it, and if she doesn't, then you just discard it the next turn anyway when you have to go back to shadow. So like, there's certain things that you kind of want to set yourself up for to like gift yourself the chance of making it more than just a blank turn where you're just calling shadows just to get rid of it. And so whenever you draw this during the course of the game, if you have very few shadows left, I might be more inclined to discard it. Whereas if I have a bunch of shadows coming left, I know I'm going to call shadows anyway for some value. Then I might be more inclined to play it.
Yeah, it's always interesting to manage how much shadows, or be mindful of how much shadows you've got left, and even see when there are situations where it makes sense just to play the Sting for that Amber Pip, not even getting the full value from your opponent forging, just knowing that, yeah, I'm highly likely to go back into shadows the next turn or two before I'm going to be missing a forge, to get that value. I do love me a juicy Amber Pip.
I love that part about this design because it's enticing you to do something that you're thinking I might not want to do this, but I get an amber out of it, so I'm gonna do it anyway.
Hmm.
I love that having like to make that decision, that trade off. Like it's so hard to discard a pip,
Yeah,
uh, but sometimes it's the right thing to do.
yeah. Yeah, so those are kind of the big ones for me. When I see the Sting in a deck list, I do immediately scan for those key cheats. Love to see one or two, um, and then after that, yeah, looking for some R that I can hit my own artifacts with. Absolutely. So good calls there. And you had mentioned taxing, which is not something I had thought about a ton, but you've used to great effect in some of your Sting lists, which is cool to hear as well.
I have a Legacy Murmuk in my favorite Sting deck. So it's an AoA deck with a Legacy Murmuk, and it's pretty neat to have that Murmuk get some value like that. Sometimes it just keeps them from forging, buys you an extra turn. It's some rare Amber control in Untamed for
Mm-hmm.
AoA, which I'm not even sure if there's anything else. Like there's Life Web and there's Murmuk, and that's like about it. Um, there's not much, but it's an interesting legacy for that reason. But yeah, also the taxing just to give me an extra amber every once in a while. Yeah.
Mm. And you've got the kind of similar vein, the unforged key effects, right? Like break key is one where you can use to take away an opponent's key, make them forge it again, and send another batch of amber your way. Super cool. Was one you were mentioning before that I had not thought of, and I'm not sure I've ever seen that in a deck before. So super cool.
Yeah, it's a mass mutation deck I have with break key and the sting. I think Keyhammer should work as well if you have it in an AOA or a Coda deck.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen that pulled off, but I have pulled off the break key a couple times. You have to be behind, which is a little bit easier to do if you have the sting, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not many ways to recur things in mass mutation to get the break key back, but you can definitely do it a couple times there and maybe get 12 amber from them. That deck also happens to have a key frog and ways to kill the key frog, so um, some nice synergies there. Kind of like hitting on a lot of different things. Um, doesn't even matter what set it is. Like there's these kind of synergies you can find for the sting in any set that it appears in. Coda, AOA, Mass Mutation. Does it appear in Vault Masters?
I've not seen it in Vault Masters. Dex of Keyforge says yes, it's in, but I'm not so good with that symbol. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't know if it must be Vault Master 24 because there's no shadows in 23. So yeah, Vault Masters makes it interesting too because like Vault Masters has been so much fun. We played it last week on stream here. because it's presenting a lot of the cards that we know, but putting them in situations that you're not used to seeing them in.
Hmm.
And I don't even know the Vaultmaster 24 card list well enough to say like, oh yeah, there's these things to look at with this thing. But I'm sure there's a lot of like unknown synergies in there. I know there's Lash in there, in the Vaultmaster 24, so there's some taxing for sure.
Hmm.
I think there's a few key cheats. Um, Maybe not many, but I think there's definitely a key frog. Um,
Keyfrog, I want
so
to say the Star Alliance one is in there. I could be wrong. Could be stick my mouth, put my mouth there. Yeah, yeah. Had a similar realization earlier today playing VM24 in sealed, and I didn't realize that thing from the deep was in there until kind of getting in the list.
hmm,
And
yeah.
interesting too as a sealed set that you don't play often, right? Not tonight, and I'm kind of musing or observing that a lot of your intuitions about what cards are available, you can't lean on if you don't know the set well, even though the cards are familiar. So
Hmm,
it's kind of interesting for sure.
yeah. Um, yeah, there are only 52 Vaultmaster 24 decks with the Sting, so not too many, relatively speaking. I'm gonna have to dig through those later and see what other synergies we've got. Yeah, there is a key frog, so that's the one key cheat we know of. Um, yeah, there is there is a Shadows key cheat, I believe. Oh no, I think there's a Shadows key cheat. I think there's like a Night Forge, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but there is an Epic Quest, but that doesn't matter for this purposes here. But yeah, some really cool synergies to discover. I would say in Vault Master 24, if you get a chance to play Vault Masters, they're a blast. I know they're hard to find. They're very exclusive, but anytime you get a chance, I highly recommend playing Sealed with Vault Master 24. Um, Never know what you're gonna find.
Yeah, that's a fun set for sure. Great for sealed and maybe even adaptive. We were saying as well. Um, cool. Okay. Okay. Sweet. So your decks that have the sting, you might say they're a sting deck. If you are also packing some key cheats, especially key cheats, right? If I see a key cheat in a opposing sting deck, I'm almost in this like, yeah, this is a sting deck mindset,
Hmm.
versus oh, you have a sting but no way to abuse it with key cheats, or even you don't have some way to remove it on a turn, kind of while staying in flow. That's a very different game, and kind of impacts my play a little bit differently than how I'm thinking about it, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're playing against a Sting deck with those things that you mentioned, some ways that you can counter it, obviously, artifact control. If you're able to destroy their Sting before you actually forge, that kind of leads us to the next question of like, if you're playing a Sting deck, do you hold on to it for like right before they forge and they can't respond to it, or do you kind of just play it and try to get value from it whenever you can? It's going to depend on the situation. But if they do just play it out, you have some hard artifact control. But some other ways to really combat it is a lot of disruption, like house forcing them into a certain house. Befuddle won't quite work here, but like Control the Weak definitely will. Tesmal to keep them out of shadows would definitely work.
Hmm.
Mark of Dis could work if they have other creatures on board. So like those are some strategies that can really slow down the Sting deck even more, just by not like giving it another turn where they can't get it off the board. And if you're already at two keys, that might be enough tempo for you to win the game. So there's definitely some counterplay to it if you see it. Although it is a very powerful card when decks are kind of built to take advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah. So I know I'm thinking usually like, okay, let me get my forges in as quickly as possible. Not that you're ever thinking, hey, I'll take my time with these forges, but I might push for some checks early on,
Hmm.
that are taking routes or taking paths that I might not normally,
Yeah,
against another deck. Similar to kind of how you'd interact with like a brig deck, perhaps.
I was
You know.
just gonna say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right though. Like, there's a lot of times where I'm playing and I'm like, the first key doesn't matter. Like, we're gonna get there anyway. I don't need to press for that first key, unless you're seeing like playing at certain things like the scaling amber control. And I would say the sting falls into that category as well. Is like you want to forge your keys as soon as you can when they have a sting deck because they might get that sting and just get even more value out of it. You really want to pressure them to do that when you get your second key. So you can try to race to get up check for the third when they may not have a good chance to stop you and get rid of the sting.
Yeah, lots of similarities to playing with and against Brig, right? Both kind of get turned off effectively once your opponent's second key is forged. They're no longer going to be impactful. Um, and then yeah, making that first key just so much more important. I've played a much more Brig combo than I've played with the Sting, but absolutely have felt that dynamic of fighting for that first key much more fiercely, and also being much more mindful of the the tempo gains and losses around those forge points.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the one Sting deck that I have played the most is the one I actually played in the World Championship last year, which was Kanben the Gaseous Stadium Outlaw. If you want to pull that one up, and it has a lot of the stuff we talked about. Like I said, it's got the key cheats, it's got the Legacy Murmuk, it has a Binate Rupture, which is really interesting with the Sting as well, because with those key cheats, I can just play the Sting. They give me their amber. I get up to 12 or something like that. And if they're not already like pressuring for key three, is where you talk about like the importance of getting the Sting out for their first key.
Mm-hmm.
You can pretty easily binate rupture them to give them their second key to set yourself up for the double key cheat and then a grasping vines that I have in here as well to take the sting off. So like I've played games where I play the binate to get myself up to like 20 some amber with two key cheats archived early on in the game, and then sure, I'll give them the second key, but they don't have very much counterplay for it at that point because you're checked for key three with more than 10 amber. The sting is off the board, and yeah, it leaves a lot of it leaves not very many answers for them at that point. So this is very much a rush deck that's trying to get that first key, and then find the key cheats, find the sting before they can get to their first key as well. So like the importance of finding it early on is very prevalent here too.
Okay, cool. Cool. So there's some things that we're looking for with and against the Sting, and and let's talk a little bit about Ceaseforge, right? So, what sorts of things are you looking for in a list when you crack it open and you see a star next to Ceaseforge in the Star Alliance column?
I'm looking for 35 other cards. Um, I just want to make sure that they didn't forget any cards in that deck because it's going to be a deck that I like. Um,
Let the record show that Quick Draw is not playing DT. There's no tie card in that.
well, I just read a ruling. You can actually play a DT deck with any Tide card. You do not need the Tide card from the deck. Did not
Mm-hmm.
know that. But I
Mm-hmm.
guess if you want to be correct, yes, I want 36 other cards because I definitely want that Archon card with it.
Nice,
That's for
nice.
sure.
Okay.
So my point here is that Ceaseforge, in my opinion, is always a good value card. Like I will never be sad to see that card in a deck. It is always it is always going to give you value in some way or another. Um, Now, to your question of what do I want to see with it, as far as combos, I think key cheats definitely help here as well, because you with the Cease Forge out, you do get the next opportunity to forge if they don't destroy it, and if you can kind of burst up with some rush over the next two turns, get yourself to 12, 13 amber. A key cheat could get you two keys before they're even allowed to forge one. So key cheats still very relevant here as well with the Cease Forge. Also like to see the scaling amber control with this. Doorstep to Heaven, for example, or Submersive Principle, perhaps. Anything that will either tax them heavily or get rid of it because they're going to spend more time getting up to higher amounts of amber when they can't forge for two turns. You want to make sure that you have an answer to kind of make them pay for not just having to wait, but they generated all this amber over the last few turns and just kind of trying to erase it. So that's the other thing I look for primarily.
Mm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to think of Ceaseforge as almost a key cheat itself, and love seeing an additional key cheat to go along with it. Get a big burst, have a nice stockpile of amber, and then be able to hopefully forge two keys on the turn where the last time counter comes off, if needed. Great way to close out games just on its own,
Hmm.
for sure.
Yeah, I think it's tempting to look at Ceaseforge and think, oh, this is like a two-turn miasma, but it's actually way better than that. And miasma is already a very good card. This is not just making them like not forge a key at the start of their turn. It is preventing them from playing any key cheats. Period. Like they
Mm-hmm.
can't forge keys. Neither can you, but they cannot forge keys at all. So you're getting the same. type of value as you would with Miasma, where you're getting the next opportunity to forge a key naturally in a game, but you're shutting off any key cheats they have as well, which, as we know from Grim Reminders, almost every deck in Grim Reminders that's highly competitive has a key cheat of some sort. And so they're very commonly seen in the game now. And so you have a Ceaseforge. You're basically telling them, if you want to forge a key here before me, you need to have artifact control and a key cheat in the same house. And that can happen in Untamed, but it is hard to find outside of Untamed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally, totally. And then I guess the other way that I think about Ceaseforge, maybe in kind of a fair Ceaseforge decks that have Ceaseforge in it, we would say, uh, is as sort of a key cheat, but with deferred payoff. So you have an extra turn in an off house to kind of build the amber to fuel your key cheat, which is incredibly powerful when kind of thought about in that light, especially for key three,
Mm-hmm.
especially for key three.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I think we always make the distinction like what is a deck with Ceaseforge and what is a Ceaseforge deck. Um, like I said, I see all the value in Ceaseforge, and it's to me, like my hot take here is that I think it's one of the best cards printed in the game. Period.
Mm. I'm not there. I'm not there. I like it a lot. I think it needs help to be good. I think it needs help to be great. I think it's always good. I think it's always good. I think it needs help to be great. Though the ceiling can be pretty high, especially in, I don't know. We're wondering, can we term a phrase, turbo keyforge decks that can like continually recur and replay Cease forges, getting to kind of forge their keys when the last time counter comes off, but then plop it right back down to keep the party
Hmm.
going. Like obviously those are excellent decks, especially and quite potent when not met with artifact control or some ways to disrupt the shenanigans on the other side. Um, I think there are a lot of decks though where Ceaseforge acts like a double miasma. Like I know it's more, but I think there are plenty of decks out there where that's effectively how it behaves, which is not bad. It's not bad, but I,
Yeah,
I don't know if
that's
it's like
I
too.
would argue that's great. Like you said that it's always good, but it needs help to be great. I would say it's always great, and it needs help to be the absolute best card in the game.
Hmm. I I guess. I mean, I'm never sad to see a Cease Forge. 100%. Always happy to have one in there. Um, it needs to be timed well to get max value, right? Like you can play it. You can play it early, get a pip, go on with your game, and that's fine. Like, are you chaining yourself with Cease Forge to kind of like line it up for key three?
Tell you what, the deck you're showing right now on the stream for anyone watching live is my Grim Reminders deck, Hjorvard El Rajator the 33rd. It's a very sassy one, 100 sass. It has a Ceaseforge in it. I find myself so many times in this deck. So like Grim Reminder's efficiency is different. So let's just preface with that. Grim Reminder's
Mm-hmm.
efficiency is very different than Old Logos efficiency, where you're, like if you're holding a card, you're kind of chaining yourself. When you're in Grim Reminders and you can just pull things out of your discard and you can flip things around and do whatever you want, chaining yourself with a Ceaseforge is nothing. Like I hold Ceaseforge in this deck all the time, and it doesn't really impact you because you just want to have it at the right time. You have so much recursion that you can find other pieces that you need and not have to worry about like, oh, this card's taking up a spot in my hand because it's one of the best cards in the deck, and I can still find my other thing. So depending on the deck you're playing and how much recursion you have, if you're playing a Grim Reminders with it, I would absolutely hold this card because it just wins games. Like if they have no artifact control and you get to two keys, you're almost always going to win the game with this card.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost always a closer that they can't really respond to unless they have artifact control.
Mm-hmm. I mean, or things like doorstep gatekeeper, uh, miasma, perhaps. I mean,
Hmm.
assuming you don't have a key cheat to close out the deal, you do in Heelvard. Um, you've got,
Not really.
I guess
Not
not for
really.
key three if it's 2/2. Yeah,
No, the
or not for key
it's
three at
funny here.
all.
I
Yeah.
this deck has this deck has a revived Zaorha, which is one of the revenants, and so it's like an ultra rare in Untamed. And I've thought many times about how much better this deck would be if that was a spooky charge, a common, instead of
Yeah.
this ultra rare.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's just kind of a funny. anecdote about this specific deck, but you're right. Like there are things that you can respond to like a doorstep, but you're often going to have some amber control of your own, and if you're ahead 2 to 1, you can maybe even the tempo, slowing them down, like playing it to not let them forge key two could be enough for you to have like, okay, sure, like you want to doorstep me, fine, I don't get my second key, but then you get your second key, and then I'll just burst up again after that doorstep turn. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
there's plenty of ways, depending on the situation, that you're still fine. Um, it's a major factor in most games. I see it played when you have two keys. Um, and I think let me take another hot take here. I see you're going to show us one of your Dark Tidings decks with it now. Um, I feel like people didn't even realize this card existed in Dark Tidings because people ignored and slept on Dark Tidings. But I've loved this card since it came out in Dark Tidings. It's just that now that it's in Grim Reminders, I think people are starting to realize how good of a card it is because it's just not something that they would see in very many competitive Archon games before.
Well, I do think that it's far more abusable in the Grim Reminders world than it was in the Dark Tidings world. Like I think we saw a lot more decks in DT times when it kind of acted like double miasma, versus a tool to really close out games. Um, I do recall you long ago, back in the day, TM, like saying, yeah, how good Ceaseforge is, and like wanting to seek out Dark Tidings Ceaseforge decks, and like it's good. It's a great card. It's a good card. Not gonna argue that point. Um, I have four Ceaseforge decks, three of them from Dark Tidings. This is probably my most notable, and I've played a decent amount. It's a rushy deck, 17 pips. So it's got triple Deepwater Gruen, a couple Waste Knots of Fertility Chant. Like the Untamed here is excellent and can really burst. And what it really wants to do is push for that first and second key very quickly, and then hopefully plop down Ceaseforge, make a bunch of amber, and just wait for the time counters to run out so it can make that last key. So using it as a finisher, as it were. Um,
Hmm.
and I've played an awful lot of games where that last time counter is about to come off, and you get TMTP'd or plus a steal or a capture, or you just have to worry about TMTP, or gatekeeper or doorstep before the end. So I don't know. I think there's a lot more tools to abuse it in the GR world, and just it being a rare. Maybe in DT with folks not exploring that set as much. Yeah, maybe folks were sleeping on it. But I do think that maybe there were just more decks in DT times where it was less of a great card and more of a good card. But
Hmm. I mean, I would agree that almost everything's more abusable in Grim Reminders, like, right? I mean,
yeah,
and yeah, with Dark Tidings not having as many powerful cards, you're not going to see it abused as much, and you're not going to see it, you know, winning games as much because just be honest, like Dark Tidings didn't just win as many games as other sets did. So like, it didn't mean that the card was not as good. It just meant that its surrounding support wasn't really up to par on it. But like the deck you're showing here, like I love this style of like massive untamed rush and then a Ceaseforge. I think I have a deck very similar to this. And like you also have some pieces that I like to see with it in Dark Tidings. Like you have the Valmart to tax
mm-hmm.
them when they take the time to like build up a bit more from the 2 turns. You have 3 Looter Pillage, which is nice because those, get pair up a couple of those. That's almost like another miasma after it runs out,
Yep.
depending on how high they get. So there's things like that that I think are really wonderful in here that really support the Ceaseforge as well.
Yeah, totally. No, it's a solid deck, and it can do the Ceaseforge thing. So I guess maybe to kind of like frame it in the lens of our series, I guess my take is that there were more decks with Ceaseforge in them in the DT times. With GR, we're seeing more Ceaseforge decks. Like, yes, the surrounding tools are just better overall, and that helps. But the nature of Ceaseforge and the sort of support that it got just made it for a different quality of deck, a different sort of deck. Categorically different, as opposed to like these are the same Ceaseforge decks. They're just better now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I think I can agree with that too. Yeah,
Hmm.
it always had great value in DT, but you may be right that it's not going to make a deck by itself like it can in Grim Reminders now. If we're talking about how it can make a deck in Grim Reminders, you if you play on TCO, you may have seen a few different styles of like a Ceaseforge loop deck.
Mm.
I've seen a few different ones. I think there's multiple ways to do it. Like the one that stuck out to me was Ceaseforge, Zavel the Archaeologist, and Sandhopper. And that three card combo would allow you to play your Ceaseforge, stall things for a few turns, and then you get the next chance to forge. And then when you forge, you play Zavel the Archaeologist to replay the Ceaseforge, and then Sandhopper to bring the Archaeologist back to hand and hang on to him and protect him. There are very few ways out of this. One being hard artifact control for the Sandhopper, so at least they can't keep protecting the Archaeologist.
Hmm.
You could have some disruption to prevent them from playing the archaeologist the turn after the Ceaseforge fires, um, and you can also obviously purge the Ceaseforge if you have like a reclaim by nature or something like that.
Yep.
So there's ways around it, but again, it's one of those combos where if you don't have hard artifact control, it's extremely hard to deal with.
Yep. Yep. Are you how are you feeling about packing hard artifact tangential, but how are you feeling about the necessity of packing hard artifact control today?
Hmm, that's a good question. I haven't thought about that in a bit. I'm probably the same place I was in 6 months ago, a year ago, where I'm like, it's nice to have. I don't feel like I totally need it. I think I may have said this before, but I used to be like all aboard, like you need the hard R, like absolutely need it. And then I think I started to realize, like as my collection grew and I was starting to acquire more decks that are closer to Archon caliber, that I think I felt that way because the decks that I had weren't really good enough to stand on their own. Like they couldn't just win a game against, you know, anything except for like the Eaton Star decks. I needed that support to win those matchups. Like when you go to a tournament, your goal is not to win every single game in the tournament. Sure, like that's your goal, but like that's not what you need to do. What you need to do is not lose two games. So you can afford to have a bad matchup or two. And I think if you have a deck that has more of those bad matchups, it's more likely to need the hard R to get out of that and not lose two games. Whereas if you have a stronger deck, I still feel this way that I think you don't need the artifact control as much as you do if you have like a sort of a I don't know if mid range is the right word, but more of like a not quite top tier Archon type deck. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it makes sense. For a pragmatic view, you're kind of looking at it as a through the lens of mitigating your surface area of bad matchups. And if you're not taking hard R, you're kind of taking those abusing artifact decks on the nose. And if you do, you kind of maybe have a fighting chance there, more of a fighting chance. But if your deck can punch up, punch hard, and not necessarily worry about being getting every edge against those decks because it's picking up ground against the others, then you can get by without it. That makes sense. That makes sense. Makes some sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, little tangent. Yeah.
Sorry, do you know of any other? I know there are other Ceaseforge loops. I guess Hjorvard, the deck I showed earlier, sort of has a Ceaseforge loop, but it's very easy to disrupt. But basically, like a card like Witch of the Eye is able to get them back. And I've definitely had some games with Hjorvard where I've been able to play Ceaseforge turn after turn. But it's very interactable. But can you think of any other combos in Grim Reminders besides the Archaeologist that lets you replay it on command?
The archaeologist is the one that gives it to you, that lets you get into an actual lock with it that I know of.
Hmm.
I believe Astron has one as a deck that lets you kind of play it back to back a couple times, but not kind of indefinitely. And then Hjovard is the other one that comes to mind. So you can play it over and over with if your board is left alone, I
Hmm.
suppose.
Yeah.
But aside from that, yeah, I mean, because you've got what? You've got Witch of the Eye, you've got Lee to get the Witch from discard, and you've also got Staff Sergeant Rhea to use the Witch on your Star Alliance turn, getting back
Right.
Ceaseforge to replay it, and you can kind of keep that party
Yeah.
going if you can get the board. All that can come from hand to play it a second time, but after that second time, you need to kind of have your board being surviving.
Yeah. Like if they wipe the board, then you can Winds of Death to get the pieces back,
Mm-hmm.
and then do it again the turn that Ceaseforge expires. But if your opponent again wisely times it correctly and and gets rid of your board at the right time, then yeah, like I said, it's interactable. It's able to be stopped. It's not the full lockout like we talked about with the archaeologist.
Yeah, I don't know of too many decks that do it just kind of indefinitely. Be some cool ones to seek out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This
Uh,
one was kind of mind blowing when I first saw it, and it's got triple Sandhopper. This is, I believe, that SD Santos deck.
yeah,
Can you pronounce the
I've played
name?
against this one in the wild. Yeah, it's SD Santos.
I
Yeah.
mean the deck name.
Oh, um, oh, it's a French deck. You want me to read it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I want to get your take on the pronunciation of this deck name.
Well, my French isn't good, but I believe this one would be Oracle de la Mangrove de Gibert.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. And what's cool too is there's triple Sandhopper in this deck. So having multiples lets you. I guess you don't need multiples. The first, you just need to play it once and then bring it back to protect it because you're not going to leave your archaeologist on board, um,
Right.
and you don't need to play it with
But
the Sandhopper. You can play it naturally. Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um,
Oofa doofa, oofa
Multiples
doofa.
help the consistency. So,
Multiples help with the
uh,
consistency for
and
sure.
this one's got a tachyon manifold too.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of
Mm-hmm.
nice. Mimicry and oh, it's counting tachyon manifold as the key cheat. I was like, wait a minute, it says it as a key cheat, but it's the tachyon manifold.
Yeah, a spicy number for sure. It's definitely the gem of this deck is the archaeologist, Sandhopper, and Ceaseforge combo. But it has some other cool stuff going on. Surprise! I feel like this is the sort of deck too, where you look it up on DOK and you're like, oh, it's got like 23 star hearts or whatever. Like, yeah, you must not be tormenting folks with it on TCO so regularly these days.
Maybe not. Maybe not, but it's
That's cool.
tormented me once. I have fallen victim to it.
It's a cool one. It's a cool one for sure. Yeah, and there was another one you had on there. I don't think I've seen this one as well, but this is also this is the same quarter combo. It's got Sandhopper and Zavel, so there's at least a couple archaeologist Sandhopper Ceaseforge decks floating around out there. And this one's also quite spicy.
Yeah.
Uh, hmm
This one is listed on DOK as owned by MedApps in June.
We have still
Not
not gotten
sure.
confirmation on if it's MedApps or Meetups. Waiting on
I
you,
think it's
buddy.
definitely MedApps. Definitely MedApps.
I would think it has to be, but
It's gotta be. Well, this one doesn't have triple sandhopper, but it's got one sandhopper. It's got the archaeologist. It has a lot of other good value to go with it all. It's got double Doctor X. It's got Ironix Rebel, um, and Zip the Implanter. So it's got that three Martian combo, Psychic Network. It has a lot of other things supporting it. Whereas it seems like SD Santos's deck obviously has the Ceaseforge loop, but it was a little more fragile in the artifact control and the creature control aspects. So if it wasn't able to get that kind of lock going on, then it had fewer things to go for it. Although it still has lots of good value, a lot of pips, artifact control, mimicry. So it's not like it's you know it has no teeth. It's just it's not quite that Grim Reminder scary stuff that we were looking at in the other one.
totally, totally. Hmm. Well, we'll see. I'm definitely more hyped for Ceaseforge than I was at the start. So that's like a win for your persuasiveness, quick draw. Definitely in the Grim Reminders world. I played a
Yeah.
Ceaseforge deck actually at the last Vault Tour that we were both at in the sealed portion of the event. We both did, as it were.
We both played it in Rochester. Yeah.
I think this is where my reluctance to fully embrace the card is coming. Just haven't been bitten so much by it. Oofa doofa, oofa doofa.
Yeah. You and I both made the mistake of playing a key cheat to forge a key while Ceaseforge, our own Ceaseforge, was on the board. So don't do that. It's not good. It does not work. um, but I just did a double check, and Ceaseforge is also in Vault Masters 24. So
Mm-hmm.
another thing to look for in Vault Master 24. Um, but there's one other question, kind of for either of these cards we talked about, the Sting or Ceaseforge, um, and that's the decision to hold it for the right time or just play it early on and kind of wait for the value to come. Obviously, that's going to depend on the artifact control. It's also going to depend on if you want to give your opponent the information that something is here, like the sting, especially that it might affect their gameplay if they're still playing around the sting and they don't know if you have it yet. Kind of holding it could kind of keep that information from them. Um, but I definitely am going to look for hard R, and if there's no hard R, I'm just going to drop the sting whenever. If it's a game where I'm going to want to play it, I'll just drop it and just have it down there early. Um, but if I'm relying on that 6 amber to come back, and they do have hard artifact control, I will often hold it for the right time. Maybe archive it, drop it right before they forge, and then once they give you 6 amber with it, then they're kind of thinking like, do I use my hard R on this now, or do I save my hard R for something else?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes you're not even mad about them using their hard R on it because it means you don't have to go back to shadows. So um, that I think with the sting, I'm definitely gonna be careful about the hard R and decide when to play it. Ceaseforge, sometimes you can get like the tempo value from it early on. Uh, you may not want to chain yourself with it early on, especially if you have a way to get it back eventually, or if you're kind of like you're already ahead and you're just trying to like keep the pressure on and keep going. If they have some artifact purging though, like a reclaim by nature or an auction off, I'm definitely more inclined to hold it for just the right time. Um, but do you have any feelings on that? Have you played any games with these to think like, I should hold this or I should just play it now?
The sting I'm more mindful of for sure. I think I tend to hold Ceaseforge less than you do generally, unless I'm playing a deck that's really relying on it for the end game. And then the one other thing to be mindful of, especially in a Grim Reminders era, we saw this in KTL match. I want to say last season is the Spontaneous Awakening, right? A card that you need to be very
Yeah.
careful of when you're playing artifacts with play effects, especially things like Ceaseforge, things like what well of memory, Eaton's Jar, right? Like
Hmm.
being able to take an opposing Ceaseforge with Spontaneous Awakening can be super potent. So it's just a card to be mindful of if you plan on relying on that Ceaseforge and playing it out. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
That actually makes it worse for you than if you just hadn't played it.
yes,
Um,
because it'll run out on their turn with the
that's a good
time
point.
counters. Yeah.
Another anecdote about that KTL match. So you're talking about the Spontaneous Awakening, which was definitely a factor in those games in the finals between Second Act and Astron. Another thing that was a factor, especially in our testing, was Ceaseforge really having value early on in the game for Astron's deck. And we've talked a lot about Ceaseforge being like your walk off, like how do you win the game? Uh, in that matchup, it was one where if he plays it late, it's just going to get stolen with Spontaneous Awakening. What we found it provided the most value at was playing it early to prevent
Mm.
Second Act from forging the first key, which would set up the Spectral Ruth.
So just
And
kind of
so,
deferring the Ruth payoff. You mean, yeah.
yeah, exactly, and kind of
Mm.
letting yourself set up a bit better to gain that tempo early on. So in that matchup, I'm sure there are other matchups like this, but that one specifically was interesting because Ceaseforge had more value early in the game for the first key than it did for the third key, which was really interesting.
That's cool. That's cool. I had definitely watched the match and was like tuned into the Spontaneous Awakening Ceaseforge interaction, but hadn't considered that. Yeah, it was actually a more impactful card early on. So that is super cool to see because I do tend
Yeah,
to think of Ceaseforge as shining best as a late game finisher. Um,
yeah. It's good to think about, what the other deck's trying to do. We've talked about empathy many times before with Astron again.
mm-hmm.
And if you have an understanding that, like, yeah, their deck is trying to forge a key fast and then get the Spectral Ruth and archive everything, like, understanding what their game plan is could guide you towards the right time to play the Cease Forge. And so there's other things besides Spectral Ruth, but, if they're just trying to get that first key out in front of you, then sometimes just slowing them down and getting that chance to forge first could be the difference maker in the game.
Totally. And one really cool observation from the chat. I'm gonna search for some of these decks after the show. Another way that you could get into kind of turbo Ceaseforge territory is with Missile Officer Myers and either a multi-dimensional rescue or look what I found to get back your Ceaseforges after they've expired. Um,
Yeah.
so that's a cool interaction. I actually do have a Missile Officer Myers look what I found deck, but not a great way to really abuse the loop. And I think
Do you have
folks,
Cease Forge in it?
I don't have Ceaseforge in it. The
Mm.
best thing I've got in there is the upgrade that lets you scrap to move amber around, and then when played on a creature, it gets -1 power for each amber on it. So you can shuffle all the amber around, kind of to take creatures out, and kind of, if things really line up, you can take out 6 creatures and claim all that amber. But it's yeah, not happened yet, but it's fun.
So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance. There's a
Yeah.
chance. Yeah,
Thanks to Zoc for pointing that out. No, that's a good one.
totally. Totally.
I knew there were more ways to do it. There's so many ways you can do creative things like that with recursion and grim reminders, and I'm sure there's more than just those two that we talked about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, not going to sit here and think on it, but I'm sure. Cool. All right, sweet. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, quick draw. Any other points you want to hit here, or we feel like we hit this well pretty hard?
Yeah, I think that hit all my notes. Not seeing anything else. Just another fun fact. I have two Winds of Exchange decks with Ceaseforge in them,
That is a cool
the
fact.
Antiquities dealer, and they are both very good decks, and that's no coincidence.
Now, did you seek them out because of the Ceaseforge, or were those also Whirlpool decks? Are these Ceaseforge Whirlpool decks?
One is a Whirlpool, one is a Ceaseforge Whirlpool, the other one is it's not. No, the other one it seemed like a really good value. And the Ceaseforge is in there that obviously I'm a huge fan. So I sought it out, I would say, for the Ceaseforge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and well, the other one I sought it out for the Whirlpool, but you know,
It's a cool friend to tag along. Ceaseforge,
yeah,
not bad,
absolutely.
not bad. Yeah, my only other cool little thing to throw in, for the longest time, my lowest rated deck by SAS was a Sting deck, and whenever I went, kind of scrolling through for reversal candidates, and the first thing I do is, all right, let me throw a reverse sort by SAS and start scrolling through there and looking at things. I'd be like, oh yeah, this deck looks terrible. Like, I think Sting is an auto exclude from reversal. Just about.
Yeah, I could see that. It's like an automatic 6 amber, and those games are usually slow enough that they have plenty of time to go back into shadows and get rid of it.
Yep, yep. So such a cool card. Completely ruined this reversal candidate.
Yeah, if only we were talking about reversal all night, I'd be talking about how the Sting is the worst card in the game.
There you go. There you go. It's missing its calling. Reversal. I don't know. Cool. Well then, feel like we get to hear a note from our sponsor.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Well, folks, this episode of Bottom of the Beaker was brought to you by a Scooped Ice Cream Parlor, the Crucible's ultimate destination for a sweet escape. Whether you're cooling down after a heated battle or celebrating a hard-fought victory, Scooped has the perfect treat to satisfy your cravings. With flavors inspired by your favorite houses, each scoop is an entropic swirl of flavor and discovery. From Disc-Dark chocolate to untamed wildberry blast, every bite transports you deeper into the crucible. So try Scoop today, because if it's a question of ice cream, the answer is check. Indeed.
Very nice.
What's your favorite ice cream flavor, Quick Draw? When you head down to Scooped, what are you asking for?
Well, there is a place near me that is called Scoops, and I think they might carry scooped ice cream. I am a cookie dough guy, gotta say.
Cookie dough's not bad. Cookie dough's not bad.
Yeah.
I'm a bit of a heathen when it comes to ice cream. I actually like strawberry.
Oof.
Yeah, that's the typical reaction you get when you tell
Yeah.
folks that you like strawberry.
Usually, I remember growing up when my family would make the mistake of buying the Neapolitan ice cream.
Yeah,
Everybody would eat the chocolate and vanilla and just leave the strawberry there. My
yeah.
mom would have to eat the strawberry.
Neapolitan ice cream is the fastest way to get left with a third of an ice cream container.
Yeah.
That or
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, indeed. Folks, I want to also let you know that Bottom of the Beaker is recorded live at twitch.tv/sloppylabwork at 9:30 Eastern Time, Wednesday evenings. You can find recordings of our past shows and other streams over at youtube.com. We are at Sloppy Labwork over there. And for the very best content, 34, No, 57 times distilled and scraped from the bottom of the beaker. Search for that very phrase in your podcatcher of choice, and we'll be there, decidedly not forging keys with you just yet.
Nice.
Yes.
I like it.
Thanks so much, as always, Quick Draw. And do you have any words for the folks getting off at the last audio stop?
I wish I had a good pun ready. I don't, so I will just stick with the tried and true. Everybody, thanks for listening and stay sloppy.
Stay sloppy indeed. Last time counter removed. Very good. Yeah, cool. Cool question. This might make a good puzzle at some point. Like Clogren was asking about whether or not there's a way to get more time counters on Ceaseforge. I couldn't think of a good way other than some Maverick shenanigans with Favor of Rex and Animator. Um, but that would be kind of a cool thing to pull off. And no, I've never
Hmm.
done it.
Are those cards even in the same set?
Are they not both in Mass Mutation?
Um, Ceaseforge isn't.
Oh, you have to animate. Well, your Ceaseforge. I mean, a Ceaseforge. More time
Okay,
counters on a
all right,
Ceaseforge. Yeah.
fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Favor of Rex. I don't actually. I don't. I barely ever played Favor of Rex. I'm actually not sure what set it's in.
I want to say I
Uh,
have Mass Mutation Favor Rex
oh,
decks.
it is not. It is. You might have a
J-
legacy. It is a Worlds Collide and Vault Master. That's
Oh.
it.
Oof. Oof.
So, I mean, yeah, it's a rare card. Maybe if you have a legacy of it, good luck with that. Along with an animator, I don't know about that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Let's see here. How many of them exist in mass mutation?
That seems unlikely. Yeah, I don't
BOK is
know.
thinking 35. There are 35. One of them's for sale.
Hey, you can, if the price is right, if the price is right, yeah, you could go out into the world and put some more time counters on your opponent's Ceaseforge. Uh,
None of them have animator. So, good luck doing it in Alliance.
oh no, oh no,
Yeah.
alliance shenanigans. Yeah,
That puzzle is getting harder and harder.
yeah. I do have so for the folks still with us, we love you, and I have this idea for a puzzle that I keep kicking around, and I've never actually put something together. Um, the idea for the puzzle is you have this like all right, taking a step back. The premise: you're playing a game with your buddy, and either somebody walks by and bumps the game, or your buddy gets mad and like flips the table, whatever. But at the end, you've got like this pile of cards on the floor and like a pile of tokens, and you're like, all right, these are the raw materials. Now set up this wacky situation. That's like your buddy's like, oh, you couldn't have won. Like, just get out of here. And he's like, I'll let you put the cards wherever you want with like the tokens wherever you want, and like if you can now still win, then like go for it. I don't know. Anyway, if that sparked
I just
some,
found
yeah,
Dataforce Stream has one of the legacy favor of Rexes.
there
There
you
you
go.
go.
There you go.
So Dataforce Stream, you got to spend some time to put together an alliance to put more time counters on Ceaseforge. Make it happen.
Yo. Interesting.
Um, I have a wacky idea for a game.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
You want to play Reversal with a Sting deck?
Reversal with a Sting deck. Ooh.
You're probably
Okay.
feeling pretty good about this, thinking like, "Oh, Quick Draw's got all these really good Sting decks."
Maybe. I'm very nervous to give you my Sting deck for reversal, my reversal caliber Sting deck, because it also has I think 4 binding ruptures. Like I don't know. Reversal with a Sting deck? Do we just kind of sit there till time's called and see who's got the most amber? Is that what
We
happens?
could set a 45-minute timer.
Holy moly. Um hmm. Reversal with a Sting deck. I'm thinking on this.
You know what you're thinking about. You're thinking about how you're 0 and 1 this season,
I,
and you
I
really don't
know.
want to go 0 and 2.
Yeah. We could just record another episode and flip a coin at the end.
The alternative is we could play a Ceaseforge matchup. Do you like
I
your chances better with that?
I think I do not.
I have some wacky Ceaseforge decks. I have 14 Ceaseforge decks to your four,
hmm
so I think you're the underdog if you go with the Ceaseforge decks.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Let's both pick. Well, let's decide. No, no, let's not decide. Let's do a DOK search, collection search, all of your Ceaseforge and Sting decks. Okay,
Hmm.
and we'll both pick a random one.
And we'll both play one of mine.
No, no, no. You'll play a random one of your Ceaseforge and Sting decks. I'll play a
All right.
random one of my Ceaseforge and Sting decks.
All right. That
I think
sounds fair to me.
I think I'm still at a little bit of a disadvantage here, but
I think so too.
for science, uh, for
All right.
science,
All
and then
right. So let's see here. How many do I have with either of these? I think it's probably like close to 20, 26 I have. I'm going to exclude Unchained and Menagerie. I don't know if I have any in there though.
not the string, the sting.
All right. So I have 26. I will. Do you want to do a random number generator for us?
Let's see. Okay,
And I will do it sorted by SAS.
so sorted by
So
SAS. So I want a big number here, right?
you want a big number.
All right, one and what is it? 26. You said?
Yeah, 26. And I should be seeing your random number generator, but I don't.
No.
So no, I can see your Archon tier decks that you're looking to get. All right. Are you telling me that you just rolled a 21 without me looking? Is that what you're saying?
I'll roll
Uh,
again. I'll roll again. That's fine. That's fine. We take our all right, one more roll just to make sure things were good. Yeah, 1 and 26.
it works now. Yeah. All
All
right.
right, 6. This is BS.
uh, all right. Let's see what six is. Let's see if six is any good. Six is a world championship caliber deck.
6 is that that's a gets Kanban?
That's Kanban. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well,
You want to re-roll it? Let's do a third
no.
time's a charm.
We'll go with it. Let's do it. No.
All right. What do you got? What do you got on your side? How many you got?
Oh, sorry. I did
Zero.
a
It says.
I did an and, not an or. I'm bad at logic or just how DOK does logic. I need either of those cards, not both of those cards. All right, I've got 19 that have one or the other. I don't think any of them are holding up to Kanban, but we will see. We will see. So between 1 and 19, 16 quick draw. Oofa
Ouch.
doofa. Oofa
Um,
doofa.
why don't we sort your SAS
No, 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 no,
by
no,
low to
no.
high? Low to
I'm
high.
I'm here for the epic. I'm here for the epic underdog victory. What was that again? 16?
16 out of 19.
16 out of 19.
So,
Okay.
I pro tip: it's
19.
easier if you just start at the bottom and count up.
Yeah, yeah. 19, 18, 17, 16. Upamash the Undertaker director. Okay, so are you gonna make the adaptive best of one game, or should I make it?
I think we should do it. Let's do an adaptive. Yeah,
All right. Okay.
sounds great. This is a perfect use case for adaptive. In fact, just today, I do you want to make it or do you want me to make it?
I'm just looking at the deck right now and seeing if there's any
Yeah,
way I want to like pretend that we should just do Archon, but against Kanban, I don't think that's
I
going to
don't
be a good
think
use of anybody's time.
Yeah. No, I was just listening today to the Call of Discovery episode where they interviewed Richard Garfield. I'm telling you, like this, I could listen to this episode like six times, and it's so good. I think this is my third time listening to it. But he talks in there about how it's it's not really fun to have like an imbalanced game and just have like one person slaughtering the other one, and it's good to challenge both players. So even if someone is like a better player or has a better deck, you want a way to balance that and challenge both of them, and that's like a perfect example here of what we're trying to do with a little adaptive best of one game here. So
Hmm.
game is up in beginner. Password sloppy as always. And let's
Wow.
see how my connection is tonight. And tell me again, what is the name of the deck that you're playing?
I'm gonna put a link here in the chat. Uh, Opamash, the Undertaker Director.
All right, so not very much creature control. 10 pips, got a sting, no key cheat, no scaling. A seems pretty bad.
Seems pretty bad.
You can Nexus your opponent's sting,
Yeah, those Nexuses looking great.
and you have to do it.
It's
You have
not
no choice.
not optional, indeed.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Um,
that's brutal. Triple
all right.
standardized testing.
Well, I
Just
think I'm gonna bid on Kanban.
probably. Hmm. This is gonna be an interesting one.
Just gonna save some time. Go straight to 7.
Okay.
And I keep telling you this every time. I'm not kidding. I don't have a number in mind. I just go by gut.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hmm. Opamash, the deck a mother would love poorly. Man, this deck's gonna do huge battle fleet things. Speed sigil, huh? What does Kanban even think of speed sigil? Psh, psh. That speed sigil's so good. Getting played for sure. You have double grasping vines too. Interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
15.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, Kanban's got the creature control there to handle this. Wow, Alpamash is sad.
It is a rough pile.
I go 16.
16, huh? $17 from me.
Okay, I kind of regretted that 16. So my gut says the pass.
Okay.
And you get the pleasure of going first. 17 chains. We'll see how we do with this single game evaluation of decks.
Oh, snap keep 4-card hand. Let's go.
All right. Nice. That's very good. All right. Show me they're everywhere.
I might. 2-1. Yeah, that's pretty cool. jam some pips here. Okay.
Definitely going Mars.
Yeah. Duders are coming. Nice. Ooh, that's coming back, huh? That's cool. That's cool. Okay. Trying this. And if you're holding if you're holding speed sigil plus nexus, well, you got me on that one. What can I say?
That's true. Yeah. Let's go. Go a different direction. Hmm. Maybe I just keep the pressure on, make you use the seed.
It's pretty good. You know, funny story. Funny story, Cloggin. We had some trouble getting Midjourney to uh, cooperate with uh, making me not bearded in this picture, and I decided to just grow a beard for tonight instead. Oh, too funny. Hmm. No beard. I mean, things were tried. Things were tried.
All right, so I got rid of it at least. I'll take that.
Yeah. Yeah, I got rid of the seed for sure.
Discard that one.
Bait and switch, nice.
Bait and switch is good.
Naughty comes down. Cool.
Yeah, you're almost out of the woods with the greater than 12 chains.
Yeah.
Duskwitch. All right. I'll take a key.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if you know this, but Duskwitch actually sucks in that deck. I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah. Just wait till I get my bad penny uh, little Nif combo going. It's gonna be great. Oh, geez. Okay, getting scary over there. Getting scary.
Yeah. So you can standardize and kill your Duskwitch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Can do
I am not
that.
afraid of that Duskwitch.
There are not too many creatures for sure. Oh, Shadows board looking scary. Mm-hmm. Seven. Okay. 4 and 2. Math. Hard math. Math's really hard.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Oofa doofa. Smash this one. We'll reap there. Okay. Yeah, back to shadows we go. Makes sense. Plays Nexus number 3. Hmm.
Still not afraid of your Dust Witch.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm wishing I didn't have it at the moment, to be honest.
I believe you.
All right, Logos here.
I know what you're thinking right now. Do I play the ZYX ready, or do I archive the standardized testing with it?
Let's see. I'm actually thinking how much I want to gamble with the wild wormhole, but I don't have any Crassosauruses in here, so let's see if I play this. No, this just makes sense to do first. Okay. 7. Play another one. Binate Rupture.
Oh.
Oof. Brutal.
Oh my goodness, that's so bad.
That's
I've
pretty
done that
bad.
many times. It's very sad.
Uh, okay. Then let's do that. Okay.
Oop, I just disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
I missed that. I missed that dramatic. What did you do? You fought Zizix to get rid of that and make me forge. That makes sense. And I am going straight back to shadows. Who needs the sting when you can just reap and steal?
Reaping and stealing's good. Done with those. Play the Swan. Oof.
Oh boy. Well, I'm not even going to call Sanctum. That's sad. Let me think, just to make sure. 1, 2, 3 amber. No, we're just gonna do this the boring way. Um, we played adaptive, so we did it the fun way. But never had the pleasure of seeing the Sting over here or calling Sanctum. I have a handful of Sanctum and an archive of Sanctum now, but
Could have fought. Yeah, the elusive was super, super annoying there. Necessary.
hey, I think you have a Binate Rupture in hand.
I sure do. That could be the flashy finish. We could steal 2 also. We'll just go there everywhere. Discard this guy. And reap for good measure. Oofa doofa. Oofa
Oofa
doofa.
doofa. Season 3. Season 3 is where it's at.
Off to a rough start. Here we go. Bad guys up ahead already. Holy
Already.
moly.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because when you play against Not Tonight, I always think of you as the bad guy, and then I play against you and I'm the bad guy. So it's fair. Fair
I
is fair.
I accept the bad guy uh, role. Absolutely. Oof. Oof.
Yeah, I was nervous at I think it was 16 was my last bid,
Mm.
and I was like, ugh, I didn't really want it for 16. Um, I regretted that bid, but
I was in the 18 to 20 range. Um, yeah, I was in the 18 to 20 range.
I think
I
there's too many creatures in here
There are a
in
lot.
Kanban.
There are a lot. There's kind of varied power ranges too, which is super annoying
Yeah, I
for
didn't
the
think of
standard
that,
testings.
but it did. Yeah, like having the Sanctum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Sanctum creatures,
Mm-hmm.
um, all but one having armor is pretty good. Because outside of the three standardized, there's a lot of damage, like to their everywheres and life for a life, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I felt like if I could get a board, it'd be all right. There's a huge Mars. I had a great Mars opening, obviously, and played three Mars creatures and then drew three more Mars cards the next turn. So yeah, I think we probably both undervalued the board presence in Opamash.
Yeah, I thought I'd be able to handle a little bit better. Let's see. So two standardites to come, but that's fair with so many chains.
Yeah,
And my opening wasn't terrible with Eureka. And hmm,
but you archived to their everywhere, didn't you?
I did archive there everywhere. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that slowed you down. It took away a lot of the value of Eureka because you had to pull your archives. Was it two untamed in there or
No, it was Untamed and a Logos, I think. I think it was Pip Pip
okay?
and they're everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough. Like because you did lose a lot of the value of the archives because you had to pull it almost immediately, and it was mixed, um, and then you had to use your seed again already for the creature control.
Hmm.
So um, yeah, that was seemed good. I think with the Eureka, but I think the Eureka kind of bit you a little bit.
I mean, I think I'm still better off having played it. It was
Oh
unfortunate to,
yeah, yeah,
it was
I think so
unfortunate to have
too.
to pop it, but it wasn't all upside, for
So you
sure.
were dealt with Eureka, they're everywhere, Pip Pip, and
May have been Nerve Blast. I have to double check. Uh,
Chota or Life for a Life. I think the Nerve Blast came later.
I had it later. I don't know if it came later.
Because you played the Lights Out and you played the Life for a Life.
I
Life for
played
Life was
Lights
just
Out
for a
Life for
Pip.
Life. Yep, you're right. You're
Probably
right.
one of those two then.
May have been. May have been.
Mm. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing with that Dusk Witch. I was not afraid of that Dusk Witch. Um,
You told me.
I did. It's funny though, like how often people are like, "Oh crap, there's a Death Switch. I gotta go out of my way and kill it." I was not about to fight twice into that, and
Yeah.
eating up the standardized testing was even better.
Yeah, without the Dust Switch, may have been better off. Gosh, can you discard a Dust Switch? I was really just hoping that you would go out of your way to fight it. Like
Hmm.
I was throwing it out as hoping that you would burn up some cycles dealing with it. Um,
Yeah, I've never actually seen it hurt Kanben that much.
mm,
Maybe it's because I knew that it was not a threat really, um, but everyone almost always kills it when I play
mm-hmm,
it.
mm-hmm. Yeah, not a ton. I mean, I
There
had a
there is
couple.
there is the 1 in 100 chance or 1 in 200 chance, probably 1 in 100, I would say, where you can have a Duskwitch land with a little Nif on table,
Yeah,
and you play the bad penny 6 times and you fight, or you play
yeah,
it 3 times and
three
you
times
fight.
in fight. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So that's cool. I mean, I would have to burn a turn to get the little nif down at that point, um,
hmm
and then draw the penny. I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
but
you've
like
got
things like Umbra can give you
Umbra.
some value. It's just that there's limited value with the Duskwitch,
Yeah, and you've got what 13 creatures in here.
something like that. Yeah, I can just look directly above me at the poster of Kanben. directly above my desk.
12,
8,
12
9,
creatures.
10, 11, 12. Yeah, and
Mm,
they're mixed. There's not really like one main house here. There's 5 creatures in Untamed, one of them being the Dusk Witch. So they're pretty evenly mixed.
yeah, it may have been a discard. It may have been better off discarding it there.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong, but like I've never seen that before, where
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I should have discarded my Dusk Witch. That's crazy.
probably. Yeah, probably should have to get that. Make sure that the standardized hit harder. It's just more important to take the twos off the board. Hmm. Interesting. I mean, I wasn't gonna like rush out with my Dusk Witch value, um, but getting the standardized to hit your board, I definitely could lose. Did lose. Would lose. Leaving those out. Um, so that's interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, I haven't come across a situation like that before, where you're like, this is probably a discard Dusk Witch.
I would have been, I'd have been stunned if you had done that.
May
I
have been
wouldn't
the
have been
play.
sad. I would have been like, wow, that's ballsy.
Oh, next time. Next
Next
time.
time.
Oh,
All
all
right.
right.
Well, make sure you update the scoreboard.
I'll update the scoreboard. So, and then I'll put in a, let's see, 18. 18 did feel like a lot. Hmm. I don't know if this is workable at 18. Maybe it is too high. We'll give it a
I thought it
thought.
was 17, wasn't it? Yeah, it was 17 chains.
17?
Yeah.
17 and pass. Okay. Hmm.
Well, I'm glad we played adaptive.
Oh, it would have been a non-game, an Archon for sure.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was
Nothing.
your? I'm curious now. What was your deck at? What was the initial
21.
roll? 21. Yeah.
That fake roll that you had.
Uh
Let's
huh.
see. 21 out of 26. So it would have been Fear Veil, the Patron of Trigonometry, which is a bulk deck I got that actually matches up decently well into the Sting. I'll drop this one in the chat for anyone curious.
You got a TMTP in there. That's
There is a
cool.
TMTP in there.
And a
Um,
graft.
there is a graft in there. Um,
Hmm. You got stuff going on.
it's got stuff. Yeah. I mean, the TMTP against a Sting deck is a good threat.
Yep. Ronnie Merkins is cool.
Decent efficiency. 5 archiving cards.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, pretty solid.
Decent. You got some.
We should, and maybe shift away here in season 3 from the peppers to just playing adaptive,
Yeah, I think it makes good sense.
especially since we want to tease anything or no teasers.
People don't like being teased.
People
Uh,
don't like being teased.
this is
If you're in the server, you already know anyway. But we're organizing an adaptive best of one event of some sort at KFC. So I think maybe doing a lot of adaptive best of ones on stream here might be a good lead up to KFC.
yeah, this is interesting too. 16. I wonder if 16 how that would have held up with the pass. Uh, I was definitely not going much higher, but going a little higher. I think 18 to 20 still feels real bad.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know that I have great intuition higher than say higher than say 12 for most decks. I have a few decks
It's
that I've
very hard.
played up
And like we
north of
don't
that
play many
range.
games with that many chains. Like we play a ton of
Hmm.
games under 10, but like once you go above 10 or 12, like we don't have a ton of experience with it. So, I think I also had another advantage of you're not that familiar with Alpha Mash, are you? Like you don't play it almost ever, do you?
I've never played it before. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I had that advantage of knowing Kanban at least. So it's kind of really only. I mean, you've seen Kanban enough, but I think that's definitely an advantage for the person that is
Yeah.
more familiar with one of the decks. What's up, Fudgenator?
15. I played 15 cards. Interesting.
Were you running the key tracker for this one?
No. 8. Interesting. I was not. I'm just counting from the log.
Yeah, I really wanted that Felix to stick around.
You played 17 cards, but you had a board to use.
I had boards to use in two different houses.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, do I still have my window open? Let's see what else is in my deck right now. My deck still has three Mars creatures, four Sanctum creatures, and no more Shadows creatures. But some good Shadows cards left in deck: Sting, Speed Sigil, Miasma, and Ghostly Hand.
Yeah. Hey, Fudge, welcome. Yeah. Oh, workshopping the bands for the triad match. Yeah, yeah. I was between a couple of bands against Karen. Uh, great match. Cool matchups. Man.
I missed it earlier. It was 0-2, huh?
0-2. 0-2. I don't think I've played two games back to back with Lorian before where I've not seen Gangernaut and or Gangernaut come together at all. It's just like very interesting. Though I had tons of efficiency the first game. I think turn one I had like 5 Logos creatures on board, including a couple Igors and Time Traveler. So like was flying through the deck, but like yeah, the Gangernaut pieces were far apart. But she played it really
The
well, managed things really well. Uh,
question then for you and also for Murph and anyone else in the chat right now who's in KTL, like, how do you guys feel Triad is with the set restriction on the teams? Because the Archon player is likely going to be taking Grim Reminders, maybe Winds of Exchange. How does that open up the Triad for you to know that you have like three different sets?
I'm a huge fan of the change. Yeah, I didn't change my deck selection too much. I actually got to play Grim Reminders in my triad, or got or slash have to play. I don't know, or feel like I leave tons of value on the table.
You get it
Um,
banned every week, is what you mean to say.
so my mass mutation got banned this week. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I didn't play Grim Reminders. Left that for the second set. So yeah, I banned a Coda deck, and I had a mass mutation deck get banned, and Murph's playing Grim Reminders in the Archon seat, so he'll get to play against Veggie with a spicy Grim Reminders list.
which mass mutation did you bring?
Zyger, T Zyger.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I figured. Yeah,
Yeah, so that could be a like this is the best deck to ban, or it could be like I don't have time for for
yep,
this
that's
for
my
this game.
strategy. Yep.
Both valid takes, but I think probably yeah, the Kodos Professoressa. Yeah, I was between that and Oakhorn for the ban. I think Professoressa is just like standout dangerous deck. Like banning in a vacuum, I'm probably gonna ban it every time in that lineup. But Oakhorn
That
was
is the
problematic too.
library access Epic Quest deck. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
library access, Epic Quest. It's got can do. I think it has a. Does it have time traveler? Time traveler, and can like uh play
I believe it
Hysterias and
has
thing.
a Rise and Drumble, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Rise and Drumble,
Yeah.
Control the Weak, couple Virtuous Works. It's a spicy deck. It's a spicy deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm. So very cool. Um, yeah, yeah. I was not liking the idea of leaving it in the mix, but Oakhorn was calling to me too. The Karen's Mass Mutation deck's very strong, but was playing like a fairer game, and I didn't feel like I could use a ban up on it. Yeah. Mm.
I haven't looked around at the meta this time around, but I totally agree with you guys both saying that it's like the set restrictions really open up a lot. Um, I think it's very interesting, especially for Triad. But I think it's a great change and sort of a good precedent for what Triad could be in the future of Keyforge. If
Mm-hmm.
you make it a like three set Triad from the previous three sets, sort of a pseudo rotation, you're still going to see a good variety of stuff and some interesting strategies coming out of that.
Yeah, totally. I I know it feels really icky to like move away from Archon solo as the like VT bring your best decks format. But I would not be super sad to see a Triad best of one take that spot.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, with a like, yeah, you can't have all three decks from the same set, sort of a thing. Uh, ooh, decision paralysis in KTL.
I can't really decide, Cloggin. I'm not really sure the answer to that question.
I'll get back to you on it. We'll take it back to the lab. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I went with decks that I kind of went with decks that I felt uh I guess I've crafted a few triads before, so I had like some to work with, and already like pretty varied in set. So I guess I didn't put too much uh burn too many cycles on the lineup there. It was really just, oh, I get to put GR in the mix, so I'll toss one in. And I know you've walked back a little bit on the importance of artifact control, but I really wanted to have. I feel more okay walking into Archon without artifact control than I do Triad, actually.
I would definitely agree with that. Yeah. In Triad, you want an answer. You need something that I usually like to have two with artifact control, just because if they're playing like an all Quixelstone lineup,
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that I have at least an answer for it, and they can't just ban my artifact control and then play all Quixels.
So you're kind
Um,
of at your like down to your weakest link though, right? If you have one non artifact control deck, that's the one that's going to get cornered potentially, because they ban one of your R decks. You have to win. You have to win with a deck that does not contain artifact control against a
if you're
Quixelstone
saying
deck.
best of three,
Best of three, yes,
yeah,
yes. In a best of
yeah.
one, it's different for sure. So another
Hmm.
reason why best of one's a better format. Um, but but yeah, best of three ends up being about the short straw, and then you get in this world where, yeah, having a thing in just two of your decks is not enough anymore if that's
Hmm.
going to be a decisive thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with Karen on this one, Murph. I don't know. I think I just have gotten burned an awful lot by having decks without R in Triad specifically. I think with I think I'm more in line with Quick Draw's thinking on Archon, where yeah, you can shore up some of your you can make ground in other matchups if you can play a stronger deck by ignoring artifact control. Um, and maybe it's just the nature of Triad. Folks are like, I'm gonna bring my like quirky artifacts lineup to Triad, and that's just a thing people do more often than they
Hmm.
do in Archon. I don't know.
I think so, definitely.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Anyway, fun stuff. But I'm enjoying the change. Uh, enjoying the change indeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
Definitely
how are you feeling about being in the Archon seat?
terrible. Horrible.
What?
Did you see my group? I mean,
I
my
mean,
group is there's a lot of you guys actually have a harder group. I will say. I think your group is really insanely hard, but my group is not exactly good. Um, so I'm playing against in the Archon slot Vargast,
mm-hmm.
someone named PHPH. I don't know them. Um, YY, another Chinese player. Linasu playing Engi. Like so like two of my matchups right off the bat. Like I'm like a massive underdog to Linasu and to Vargast. And then the other two, I don't admittedly don't know anything about them, but like there's lots of good players, lots of good decks. It's not like I'm counting those two as like winnable. I don't even know what the decks are. I haven't looked at them yet. But like being put into Archon when Archon is obviously not my favorite preference, and then I have to face against Linus's insane deck, and then one of Vargast's insane decks. Like that's not feeling good. No.
Yeah, yeah. Archon, interesting one, interesting place. Very curious to see how Amber Sky, Amber Skies shakes thing up. Every time I go to say Amber Skies, I feel like I'm about to say it wrong. I don't know if I like want to say Archon Skies or Astral Skies or something,
Hmm.
but
I would have thought Ember Skies or Amber Skies. Those are the two that I'm thinking.
Hmm.
I don't know which one it is.
Hmm. But you're definitely thinking of spelling it the same way, just
Yeah,
pronunciation. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I keep thinking I'm gonna reach for the wrong word in that A slot, so I'll say like AS. But I don't know. Doesn't necessarily. Oh, I had something I wanted to change. Oh, I didn't know about this dash dash no beard. I guess I could take out one of them. Hmm. That's a cool tip, Cloggin. I'm gonna play around with that. We shall see. Yeah. I need a nice keyboard shortcut. Uh, a keyboard shortcut to get that AE letter, that ligature that's been promoted to like character status. Um, Good man, indeed.
I'm just happy to have Now in Stereo back. I don't mind playing Archon when Now in Stereo gets to play Adaptive instead. Um, my lifetime record against Now in Stereo is probably worse than my lifetime record against you on Bottom of the Beaker.
Though that's steadily improving. Oof.
Steadily. Um,
Look, signs are looking up in season 3.
see if
Who
I can keep it up.
who's your all right, closing thoughts for the stream. Who's your all-time worst record against holder? Is it Now in Stereo, you think?
It's got to be. Like, he and I used to play a lot, and he would just destroy me all the time.
Hmm.
Like, it didn't matter what format we were playing. Sealed, Archon, Reversal. He would just always beat me.
Mm-hmm.
Adaptive. He thrashed me in Adaptive last week.
Watch out. He's going to be topping those adaptive ELO leaderboards pretty
Yeah,
soon.
we'll see. I hope so. Um, he's not familiar with Grim Reminders yet, so we thought this was a really good way to get him back into the game is to play Adaptive in this in this league where he's not going to see Grim Reminders because they're playing them either in Archon or Triad.
Yep. Yep. Did you look at the pool of decks that he'll be up against?
Nope, I haven't yet.
Well, chances are good there will be few grim reminders, and likely the winds of exchange decks are going to be soaked up by Triad or Archon too.
Most likely, yeah, but I
Yeah.
haven't looked at him yet.
Hmm.
It's funny that Cloggin says Roger got it, and Roger is my cat who just knocked something off the, the table behind me.
Works
So
on many
Roger did get it.
works
Roger
on
got it
many
indeed.
levels. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Oof. Well, I need to go cry myself to sleep over my spiraling record in
Yeah,
season 3 here.
yeah. I'm maybe it would take me a long time to go back to all 90 previous episodes and see how many games I won or lost. But I'm tempted to do it just as a motivating factor. Be like, okay, I only need to win 90, or no, I guess 85 more games to catch up.
uh, I think maybe season. I think may have come out on top in season 2. I don't know about season 1, or if we were. I don't know, but we should count whole seasons and not just games.
Maybe.
Maybe. So you got to win season
Yeah.
3. Just win season 3. Yeah.
Almost there. Just like 25 or 30 more.
There you go. There you got to put in the bank. Yeah. All right. Cool. Well,
All
let's
right.
wrap things up.
Yeah.
Good night, folks in the chat. Thanks for hanging out with us. Fun times as always. And we'll see you around the lab.
Thanks, everybody.